Hello everyone. Hello, this is Irene with SaugaTalks. Hello, I speak weekly with fascinating people in tech. I speak with experts, with influencers, with leaders and entrepreneurs. And today I am excited to be here with Axel Schmidt. Thank you so much because the topic we want to focus on today is human digital twin and smart automation. This is fantastic. So thank you for bringing your expertise, Axel. You are a senior communication manager at ProGlove, the
That's right.
company focusing on. Can you please explain, yes, what is ProGlove is all about?
Okay, so ProGlove is all about providing the smallest and lightest barcode scanners in the world. We're we're making wearable barcode scanners. That is, they're being worn by the worker at the back of the hand. They're usually attached to a glove or a wrap, or sometimes they come in the shape of a lanyard, as far as the consumable is concerned. And they let the workers be much more efficient at what they're doing, and also they relieve them of a tremendous burden which they no longer have to carry. And then also there's the quality side of things, because our devices come with a feedback option that tells it gives the worker an alert as to whether they pick a right pick or a bad pick, so that they can prevent up to 33% of the common picking errors.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks so much. So when we agreed to talk about human digital twin, why don't we step back? Because people hear the term digital twin left and right, articles,
Right.
interviews, videos, right? I'm still confused. I'm still confused. I know
Right.
that digital twin is a model
Right.
of organization. You can build
Right.
a twin for a factory or airport, right, and
Right.
stimulate the business. So can you please, from your standpoint, how do you define digital twin?
Okay, so I mean, what we're seeing in the market when people are talking about the digital twin, it's basically the idea that you have a digital representation of a physical presence or a physical object. Usually, you do that in order to provide some kind of playground in which you can try out stuff and run processes and learn from it. And the idea is that you do not have to test things in a real life setting, because that might spoil infrastructure components. It may be a hazard of some sort for all the parties involved, for the infrastructure, for the human workers, and so forth. And so the idea is, as we get to experience it, um, provide this digital representation of a physical object.
Right, that helps. That helps. Thank you. Thank you for this. And when we're talking about human digital twin, is it all become robotic and automated? How do we translate, right, organizational kind of, objective model
Right.
into us humans?
Right. So, as far as we're concerned, we believe there's three very uh, essential aspects to the human digital twin. One is a virtual representation of the shop floor worker. Second is a virtual representation of the shop floor. In other words, your infrastructure, all the machinery, the robots, everything that's happening on the shop floor. And then the third aspect is sort of an industrial engineer that makes sense of the data that is being collected. Now, going back to what I initially said, if you think about the idea of the digital twin, it has always been about protecting and safeguarding your valuable resources and assets and so forth. But if you look at things, as they currently are on the shop floors, you will find that typically up to 70% of the value that's being added across shop floors of this globe are being delivered by human workers with their manual work. So, in other words, this is your most valuable resource that you got at your disposal. So, you want to go and make sure you're protecting that resource, and you're making the most of it, and you help them do a better job at less effort. Now, just to share another perspective here. Now, I said that the human workforce, is actually the most valuable resource that businesses have. There's another aspect that we should consider. The International Labor Organization found that some staggering 3 trillion US dollars are being spent every year because of accidents happening across the shop floors, in the workplace, due to attention deficits, due to stress, and all sorts of other injuries and accidents that are happening. So if you look at that, from that angle, you have your most valuable people out there, and you clearly find that they deserve better protection. And the thing that you really want to address as far as that is concerned, you want to take a closer look at the worker well-being, because typically, you would think, okay, businesses need to capitalize on their efficiency, on their profitability, and so forth, right? And it's very important, obviously, but that that motivation doesn't have to be an adversary to the worker well-being. I think, if you really look at things, human workers and these business needs do not have to be adversaries, particularly when you have technology available at your disposal that can help bring the two motivations together, so that, at the end of the day, everybody gets the benefit from that. And that's why we designed something that we call the human digital twin. And it comes with these three aspects that I was mentioning earlier. So as far as the human shop floor worker is concerned, we're leveraging here is the fact that we're providing technology that is wearable, right? And that lets you pick up all sorts of unique data, metadata, right? So this can be timestamps, this can be a step count, this can be a temperature reading, and also all that kind of data. And if you collect it with motion patterns, you can do time motion studies. You can measure the effort that a human worker needs to complete the jobs that they're working on, and that allows you to make the right conclusions based on what you're seeing in the data. Because you may find that you don't have enough workers on site. That the workers have to walk to many steps before they can get a job completed, and then you want to provide relief. And looking at these processes, that will also help to deliver more efficiency at the end of the day. So this is where you would actually bring in the industrial engineer that I was talking about earlier, because this is the role, where you look at the processes. Are the processes designed correctly? Is there room for improvement? If so, how can we go about bringing about that improvement, and what are the steps that we need to take?
Yep. So what you describing is basically digitally native human digital twins. Question is, how do we digest this? Because human is a complex machine. Okay,
right.
And building model of ourselves, right? Is it online? Is it in manufacturing environment, in medicine? So where does it take us in a way that what's possible, right? The fantastic future ahead. You mentioned safety, you mentioned training. Can you draw with this picture of beautiful future next decades ahead of us?
Right. So what we're seeing in the market is that these type of applications that we're talking about, have a great fit for warehouse businesses, in the supply chain, also in manufacturing when it comes to designing assembly lines and the processes that run through them. That's where we believe a human digital twin makes a lot of sense. And these are the areas, by the way. I mean, we've been touching upon the issue of automation. And robotics and so forth. If you look at warehousing, there's interesting studies available that will demonstrate that actually the more automation technology is being implemented and deployed on sites, the greater the increase is when it comes to manual human work. And the reason is fairly simple to understand, I believe, because if the technology is being implemented correctly and smartly, then it will generate leeway for the human worker. And it will give them room to focus on what they're really doing better than the robots. So that's why I've been saying, technology and the human workers do not have to be adversaries. They need to collaborate. They need to work hand in hand, so to speak, and allow for better processes, better work design, better workloads, and so forth. And that's what we're seeing. So in other words, what we believe in is that we're much more likely to see a shortage of worker rather than having all workers replaced by robots and automation. And if that comes to be, you really want the smartest technology available in order to relieve the workers and allow businesses to be still efficient and, take care of the profitability that they need to have, right?
You know what? You bring very important topic, because here at SaugaTalks we discuss a lot about augmenting human beings and how automation is help, not a threat to humankind and jobs. And you bring an interesting perspective from digital twin modeling standpoint. So what successful implementations have you seen out there where we can see the shiny, beautiful achievements and convince more skeptics out there?
Right. So we've been working with a couple of parcel network delivery companies. And for them, it's very important to look at their processes and analyze the processes and relieve their workers, because we've seen how the world has changed because of the pandemic, right? And one of the effects that we've all been experiencing is that the e-commerce transaction really have increased substantially. Now, when do you do your e-commerce shopping? It's probably when you got time on your hands. So it's preferably the weekend, maybe Friday night. You go online and you look for the stuff that you need, you want to order. And then, that means for companies that are doing the parcel delivery, they will get to experience that towards the beginning of the week, right? And what happens then is they're experiencing these tremendous peaks, and they need to be prepared for it. They need to look at the processes. They need to be able to process the packages, for one. Look at the packages. I mean, think about what you're ordering online. You tend to order everything from a toothbrush to a TV set. But these two articles, they can't be processed through the same lines. They need different lines. You need bulky goods and the processing of bulky goods, and that requires manual work. And you need to be able to somehow address these concerns that come with it, because there's another very important aspect here. If you look at warehouses, distribution centers, and so forth, these are physical infrastructures that you cannot just rebuild. You got what you got, right? Once you have a distribution center, you need to deal with it. You need to make the most of it. Yet you need to be flexible, and you need to be able to adapt to what's happening. So you need to make the most of your infrastructure, and technology can actually pave the way to finding the right balance there, striking the right balance in order to achieve the best results possible.
Fantastic. Thank you, Axel. So what do you think in terms of centralized and decentralized approach for building human digital twins in organizations for companies? So what's the advisable best practice there?
Right. So, I think it's very, when it comes to designing human digital twins, it's critical to work with decentralized approaches to collecting data. Obviously, when you have a shop floor, you have people all over the place. So, you want to collect the data from all these places where people are actually working. These people are, working on different workstations, maybe at the gate, maybe sequencing, maybe packaging, maybe picking. There's all sorts of jobs that they're working. But, you want to collect all this data and then, contextualize the data and draw actionable insights from it. But in order to be able to do that, you cannot just collect it from one central point. So it's very important to have technology in place that supports that notion. So there's edge computing, obviously, there's wearable technology. We believe wearable technology is very critical in that regard when it comes to building human digital twins, because it supports that approach that I just described as being decentralized. I mean, that being said, obviously, there's also a need for organizations to, maintain their centralized and top-down approach to data, because what I was describing is pretty much a bottom-up approach. You see what's really happening on the shop floor, and the data is being generated while workers are going about their business. But at the same time, you might have a business analytics solution in place that's looking at your organization top down, right? And the key thing is that you need to be able to connect the data that's coming bottom up with the data that you've got in your systems that are looking at your organization top down. And in order for that to happen, you need application programming interfaces that support that match there.
Right. So you're touching on an important topic, how organization actually consuming the data from human digital twins, right? So what are the, again, advisable approaches there, if you can share a few?
Okay, so I mean, obviously, the thing is, when it comes to technology, you want to look for IT-friendly technology as far as the human digital twin is concerned. You need IT-friendly devices, plug-and-play devices, things that you can easily roll out, and technology that doesn't come with a whole lot of integration hassle. Now, in order for the data that you collect in that way, it's very important to provide the application programming interfaces, the APIs, and then organizations really do not have to change much if they can connect these systems to their ERP system, for instance, to their warehouse management systems, to their business analytics, to their business intelligence solutions. Whatever they got in place is very important for them, that they just are in a position to make that connect kind of easy, and that's basically a matter of the interfaces there. I mean, just to look at it, obviously, I like to compare this to drilling a tunnel through a mountain, right? Mm-hmm. It goes faster if you start drilling from two sides. So you get the top-down perspective and the bottom-up perspective, and you meet both ends if you start drilling from both sides. But it's very crucial that you can, rely on the systems that you got in place, I think.
With a big promise, on technology side, we know the amazing things are possible. Question is about very human resistance to change. So I know through pandemic, right, a lot of automation technologies saw their acceleration, the entire digital transformation, this buzzy word, is out there. Can you please comment on some of the challenges and barriers to adoption that you've seen?
Right. So, I mean, typically, what we see is quite the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Because, I mean, the wearable technology that we provide actually makes the job a whole lot easier for the workers. And, we've seen all sorts of things. We've seen workers dancing around when they first tried out our scanners. We've seen workers that, like, when they were part of a pilot project, they would hide the scanners that we would give to them, so they could make sure they would get to work with the scanner the very next day, and all sorts of funny things. I suppose the what's critical is that you're very transparent with your workers. You need to demonstrate the points and communicate why you're considering new technology, and then very often they will find the benefits are actually in their favor, and actually it's kind of like if you look at your workplace, if you got the best available technology in place, it's much more fun to work that workstation rather than having outdated, old-fashioned stuff that you need to work with that's not very reliable, and it's kind of like that. But when it comes to new technology, I'd say the key is transparency and good communications. But as far as we're concerned, we're doing a pretty good job with satisfying the workers, because as I was saying earlier, we're relieving them of a tremendous burden. I mean, if you look at a car maker, for instance, and you can pretty much use any given car maker. Any car maker makes roughly 1,000 cars per plant in a day, right? Mm-hmm. And per car, you need to scan approximately 1,000 times. So that means, 1,000 times 1,000, that's 1,000,000 scans per day, right? Now, our scanners weigh as much as 2 ounces, and that makes them at least 10 times lighter than a conventional barcode scanner, right? A scanner gun. But there's other scanners available out there in the market that are even heavier than this. So actually, what we're doing is, with this light technology, we're relieving the worker of up to 1.5 metric tons per day that they do not have to lift, right? And then they can go with the workflow. They don't have to search for their barcode scanner and so forth. And these are the obvious, benefits that workers get to experience. Yet it's, as I said, just be open about the new technology that you're introducing, and that's paramount.
This is fantastic, you know what, because this is the first time I'm hearing about the transformations happening from the bottom up. You're kind of winning hearts and minds of those who will benefit first, right? And this is the most crucial in any field. So this is fantastic that you have these demonstrable benefits so that workers can push up on management, right? On deployment, more, not less.
Right. The thing is, with the human digital twin technology and the technology I was describing, we've seen, tremendous efficiency gains all across organizations. If we go back to that automotive example that I was referring earlier, now typically the time you save with a wearable barcode scanner like ours is, 3-4 seconds. Now, 4 seconds per scan means that you would save 4 million seconds per day, right? And then if you count, if you take a look at the automotive industry, the fact of the matter is that a second in the automotive industry is roughly €1 or $1. So that means per plant in one day, you can save up to $4 million, right? And that's just huge. And then with human digital twin, we've seen efficiency increases in the double-digit area. Obviously, because you can redesign your processes, you get to identify blockers, you get to understand what's happening on the shop floor, identify best practices. By the way, I mean, this is another key concern that that this kind of technology can address. Typically, if you look at organizations, you find that workers are working in silos, right? That's why everybody that is doing consulting advises management, hey, you need to support initiatives, you need to provide guidance, right? The truth of the matter is, or the question is, how do you break up these silos and be able to transfer best practices from one station to another? Because this is rarely happening. It's a key obstacle. With the human digital twin technology, you can actually transfer it easily because it's you have the visibility, you get to understand it, and you can transfer it easily because you can you can design one workstation after the other.
Amazing. This is fantastic story because first of all, when you're dealing with cool technology, right, it almost sells itself because yes, benefits are immediately demonstrable, right, and the business benefits and outcomes really, right, fantastic for the management and fabulous for the ground workers. So that. Congratulations on the successes there, because absolutely this is a fantastic example of automation which is easy understandable and easy translatable from business side and human side. This is great. So I want to talk about other industries. You mentioned manufacturing. Clearly, right? We talked about logistics, supply chains. Even I understand the importance, right, of technology there. But when we go into retail or even beyond that, so where do you see this, like the biggest acceleration and the biggest growth will be?
Right. So if you look at retail, then again, you end up at e-commerce kind of fast because many of the retailers that are currently out there, need to step up their e-commerce game, and this this was a development that we've seen even way before the pandemic struck, right? But what's that mean? It means you have to redesign your fulfillment centers. You have to move them closer to your customers. You have to think about concepts like click and collect, right? These kind of things, and that changes many of the processes in the fulfillment centers, because obviously, if you say, for instance, if you're a food company, a grocery company, and you allow for click and collect schemes, then obviously you need to move the orders through your store to the customers so they can pick them up, right? And this requires a whole lot of change, and this means you have to have additional flexibility. You have to find ways how to not interfere with your other processes that are going on while you run your operations, right? And this is another key concern here. Retail, so retail obviously is another very interesting market in that aspect, because you have that rise in e-commerce, and that makes it an interesting playground, and makes these organizations probably want to consider the human digital twin as a means to address the challenges they are faced with.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Thank you very much. I got excited, listening to you, because again, with all the content we receive, it doesn't necessarily resonate until you see the practical examples of,
Right.
people being happy with handling new technology, with being,
Right.
with deploying new technology and seeing the benefits. So in closing, Axel, a couple of takeaways, please, about, what's next for human digital twins and for the organizations who are looking to deploy.
Right. So, I mean, when it comes to the human digital twin, obviously, one thing we're looking into is, visualizing routes, how items travel along the supply chain, how they travel along your warehouses, these kind of things. We're looking at enhancing the process analytics capabilities even further. And then there's probably, a couple of other things that you might want to look into. Obviously, carrying all sorts of sensors allows you to collect all sorts of data. But speaking of data, it's very important to democratize the entire process, to provide flexibility. You don't want surveillance, so you want to use anonymized data, right? And you want to give workers a chance to understand what kind of data is being transmitted. So this is something that you need to look into, and that is certainly a key concern, especially for us being a European headquartered company.
Thank you, Axel, so very much for your time today. So now I have better understanding. I will be happy to share with the audience that, hey, technology is here to augment us, to make our life, our work a little bit better, a little bit easier. And this way we can switch to being humans, right? And create something next that will help us to be better. Thank you, Axel, so very much. Thank you.